If you were holding a multi-million-dollar movie franchise in your hands, the absolute last thing you would do is strap your lead actor to the outside of an actual airplane.
Right.
While it's taking off. Like, that's just...
Yeah, the liability alone would instantly shut down almost any production in the world today.
Exactly. I mean, the insurance nightmare alone. Yet for one specific cinematic legend, that level of extreme physical danger, it isn't a liability. It's a mandatory storytelling device. So today on The Deep Dive, our mission is to analyze this massive, really fascinating collection of behind-the-scenes profiles, production notes, and interviews to decode the 4 distinct physical hallmarks of this incredible actor.
Yeah, and we were looking at decades of film analyses here to understand not just, his recognizable on-screen habits, because we all know them, but the underlying philosophy that's actually driving them.
Right.
Because when you truly break it down, he hasn't just entertained audiences. He has fundamentally changed the actual architecture of modern action cinema.
He really has. And, to the casual viewer, it just looks like an action star showing off, right?
Yeah, just flexing.
Exactly. He runs, he drives fast, he rides a bike, he jumps off something that's just incredibly high. But as we pull these 4 recurring tropes apart today, you'll see a 30-year evolution of this intense physical commitment that actually rewrote the rules of where a camera can even exist in physical space.
It's so true.
So let's start with the most foundational element of his movement, which is running.
The sprint.
The sprint. It is essentially his signature. It's kind of like a legendary musician's signature guitar riff.
Oh, I like that.
You expect it, you wait for it, and it's always slightly remixed depending on the movie, but it is undeniably his.
Yeah.
And looking at the early production notes, he was finding ways to showcase this all the way back in 1981 in the movie Taps.
Which is wild to think about.
Yeah.
Because it started as an action beat, right? But directors very quickly realized his sprint had a very unique kinetic weight to it. It wasn't just about moving a character from point A to point B. Yeah. It was character choice in itself.
Right. Because when you watch most actors run on screen, honestly, it can look a bit uncoordinated or just disconnected from their actual performance. But his run is fiercely controlled.
Fiercely controlled. And that explains how it bled into non-action films almost seamlessly.
Oh, totally.
It makes sense to see him sprinting in a suit in the legal the firm, right? Because he's a lawyer literally running for his life.
Right.
But then you have a director like Cameron Crowe deliberately slipping this very specific high-intensity running technique into dramas.
See, we see him sprinting in the open, that surreal sequence of Vanilla Sky.
Yes.
And then famously, right at the end of the romantic comedy drama, Jerry Maguire.
Which is so interesting because putting a full lung-busting sprint into a romantic comedy is a highly unusual blocking choice for a director.
Yeah, it really is.
But if you analyze the biomechanics of his run, the bladed skiff hands, the rigid posture, that intense, unblinking focus he has.
Oh, the intensity in his eyes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It conveys a level of desperation and forward momentum that dialogue simply cannot match. It was a physical tool he was actively honing, basically training the audience to recognize his physical exertion as an emotional cue.
Wow, training the audience and honing it for when the modern action era really kicked into high gear for him. Because in any of those spy franchise films he does, that footwork is front and center. But the absolute peak of this trope, at least according to the sources, happens in the 3rd installment of that spy franchise.
Oh, yeah.
J.J. Abrams literally dedicates nearly an entire minute of the climax strictly to him sprinting through Shanghai in pursuit of the villain.
A 60-second continuous run in a feature film. That breaks fundamental rules of traditional editing.
How so?
Well, the standard formula for a chase scene relies on rapid cuts, right? You establish the pursuer, cut to the pursued, cut to an obstacle, maybe cut to a close-up of a foot splashing in a puddle.
Right, to make it feel fast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It artificially generates pace and energy in the edit bay.
But lingering on one actor in a tracking shot, just propelling himself forward for a full minute, it forces you to literally feel the exhaustion.
You are watching real oxygen depletion.
Yes. It's an endurance test for the audience as much as it is for him.
Completely.
But I do have to ask, at a certain point, isn't he just playing to the meme?
What do you mean?
Well, Reading through the transcripts, there's a scene in one of his movies where a character literally tells him, don't run, you don't have to chase me, you don't have to run.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that is incredible self-awareness.
Oh, the filmmakers absolutely know the audience expects the sprint, and they aren't above winking at it. But this footwork is far more than an inside joke for the fans.
Oh.
If you trace the trajectory of his productions, establishing that kinetic, physical presence on foot was a deliberate baseline.
A baseline for what?
It trained audiences to expect a visceral, unsimulated reality from his body. And that baseline trust served as the foundation for the massive physical escalations that followed in his career.
That makes a lot of sense because human biomechanics, they have a hard speed limit.
Right.
Once he perfected the visual language of the foot chase, the only way to escalate the audience's heart rate was to introduce mechanical velocity.
Exactly.
He had to trade the running shoes for engines.
And that transition introduces our second hallmark. Because the overarching theme across all the production analyses is this persistent, almost obsessive need to push vehicular speed to its absolute limit.
Regardless of the film's genre, too,
Yeah.
we aren't just talking about a standard car chase down a city street. The evolution is wild. Like in that sci-fi movie Minority Report, he's physically leaping across cars on a vertically moving futuristic highway system.
Yeah.
In Vanilla Sky, he's driving a speeding vintage car straight off a bridge. And then there's Days of Thunder, which is an entire narrative built purely around the punishing physics of racing.
Right. And the critical distinction that separates these sequences from standard Hollywood action is the outright rejection of the soundstage.
Oh, absolutely.
Traditionally, to keep a star safe, you put the actor in a stationary car chassis, you surround them with green screens or LED screens, and you basically have stagehands physically rock the car back and forth while the actor pretends to steer against artificial wind.
Just a guy with a leaf blower off camera.
Exactly.
But I'm looking at the insurance implications of what he actually does, and it just doesn't make sense on paper.
It doesn't.
How did a studio ever justify the liability of putting their lead actor in an actual fighter jet for that aviation sequel? Or having him genuinely pilot a helicopter spiraling through snow-covered mountains in that sixth spy movie?
It's terrifying.
And it gets even wilder. During American Made, production records show he utilized his own pilot's license to perform intense low-altitude flying sequences in a six-seater Piper Aerostar 600 and a Cessna 414.
Yeah.
Is there an actual quantifiable cinematic benefit to putting a multi-million-dollar asset in a real aircraft rather than just simulating it?
There is, and the benefit to the visual storytelling is monumental, specifically because of what it does to human physiology.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
When an actor is truly experiencing real G-forces in an aircraft, their body reacts in ways that absolutely cannot be acted or simulated.
Right.
The blood drains from the face, the tension in the jaw muscles becomes completely rigid, the eyes dart differently as the brain calculates actual altitude and speed. The vocal cords literally strain against the physical weight of gravity.
Oh, wow. So you can't fake the physics of natural light hitting a face at 300 miles an hour.
You really can't. A CGI composite always has a subtle disconnect in the lighting or the way the hair moves or just the micro expressions on the face. By putting himself in the actual high-speed environment, he completely blurs the line between the character's peril and the actor's reality.
Because the fear and the focus you see on screen are genuine.
Exactly.
Which completely reframes that iconic line, I feel the need for speed.
Yeah.
It's not just a famous movie quote anymore. It's a literal thesis statement of his working style.
It is the mandate for every production he leads. The environment must be real, so the physical reaction is real.
So I'm trying to picture the difference between a car chase and other types of vehicles on film. Like in a car or even an airplane cockpit, you're essentially just a face behind glass. You are enclosed in a cage. But if the goal is to show the actor interacting with the raw physics of speed, wouldn't a motorcycle be the ultimate tool? Because your entire body is exposed to the environment.
That deduction leads us directly to the third hallmark. The motorcycle is perhaps his most crucial cinematic steed, precisely because it strips away that protective metal cage.
It really is ubiquitous in his work. Like, it started back in 1986 with that indelible image of him racing a fighter jet along the airport runway.
Oh, classic.
And watching that evolve over his career is staggering. Fast forward 35 years to the sequel, and he's not just on a fast bike. He's riding the Kawasaki Ninja H2, which is literally the fastest production motorcycle in the world.
Yeah, and we see this across his entire filmography, from the stylized operatic duel in the second spy film to the high-speed chase cutting through oncoming Parisian traffic in the sixth one.
But let's talk about the how and the why. Because riding the fastest motorcycle in the world changes the production environment drastically. You can't just slap a heavy camera on the hood like you would a car.
Exactly. When you are on a motorcycle moving at those speeds, the wind resistance alone dramatically changes your posture. Your grip on the handlebars, the tension in your core, the way your clothes violently whip against your body, all of that telegraphs immense vulnerability to the audience.
Yeah, it really does.
In a typical stunt, a rider wears a dark helmet to hide that it's a double, or they shoot it from far away. But he wears a clear visor or just sunglasses. When he's leaning into a turn, his knee inches from the asphalt, the viewer viscerally understands that the slightest miscalculation means severe injury.
It adds a profound layer of tactile realism. You can practically feel the asphalt.
Yes.
But what I find hilarious and honestly deeply revealing about his mindset is what happens when he does a period piece.
Oh, this is great.
If motorcycles simply do not exist in the historical context of the universe he's playing in, he just finds the biological equivalent.
Pivots to the horse.
Right. In that epic historical drama, Far and Away, there's a massive climactic land race to claim property in Oklahoma. The production records explicitly note that he was riding the absolute fastest horse on the entire set, physically outrunning the rest of the cast and the professional stunt riders.
I mean, of course he was.
As one piece of analysis we reviewed pointed out, what is a horse, really, if not a motorcycle with legs?
That's such a perfect way to put it, because the visual dynamic is practically identical for a filmmaker.
How so?
You have an exposed rider, incredible speed, and the intense physical coordination required to stay mounted while simultaneously hitting specific spatial marks for the camera.
Right, you still have to hit your mark.
Exactly. The mechanical vehicle might change to a biological one, but the cinematic philosophy, which is exposing the actor to raw, unshielded velocity, it remains perfectly intact.
That's fascinating. Okay, so we have the sprint, we have the vehicular velocity, and the exposed vulnerability of the motorcycle, but these are all just ingredients.
Right.
The final hallmark is the umbrella that covers all of this. It's the physical stunt itself. It is the grand unifying theory of his career.
And it's important to contextualize this because he didn't begin his career doing these massive, death-defying practical effects.
Right.
You don't see him scaling skyscrapers in Rain Man.
No.
And there are no vertigo-inducing practical drops in Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. The physical stakes were just much lower in his early dramatic work.
Though, the seeds of this physicality were definitely there.
Oh, for sure.
Looking at behind-the-scenes accounts of The Outsiders, his character randomly executes a standing backflip just for running out of a house.
Yeah, I remember that.
One of his co-stars actually recalled that director Francis Ford Coppola had asked the cast to learn how to do a backflip, and he was the only one who actually put in the work to pull it off.
Of course.
He also insisted on driving real race cars in Days of Thunder, so the appetite for pushing his physical limits was always bubbling under the surface.
It was. But the shift from simply being a physical actor to becoming a central pillar of stunt-driven action cinema required a fundamental change in how movies are constructed from the ground up.
And we finally get a direct answer to why he pushed it so far from a late-night television interview he did a few years back.
Oh, the Graham Norton one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When pressed on why he takes these massive personal risks, he said, and I'm quoting here, "It all comes down to the storytelling. I feel that you're bringing everything you know physically and emotionally to a character in a story. I've trained for 30 years doing stunts, and it allows us to put cameras in places where you are normally not able to."
See, that is the key.
It fundamentally shifts the conversation. He is flat out telling us this isn't an ego trip.
No.
It's a highly technical, spatial strategy designed specifically to change camera placement.
That right there is the grand synthesis. All of it. I mean, the running, the jets, the motorcycles, the backflips, they are physical sacrifices made to completely eliminate the boundary between the camera lens and the action.
I want to break down the actual mechanics of that. How does an actor's physical capability dictate where a director is allowed to put a camera?
Well, let's look at standard coverage for an action scene. If you are using a stunt double to ride a motorcycle through traffic, the director's options are severely limited. The camera has to be placed far away for a wide shot, or it has to shoot from behind the rider's shoulder to hide the double's face.
Right, because if you see their face, the illusion is broken.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in the editing room, They have to stitch together this choppy sequence, like a wide shot of the dangerous stunt, followed by a tight stationary close-up of the lead actor sitting on a fake bike on a soundstage pretending to steer, and back again.
So it's the difference between watching a magician from the back of a theater, where you just have to trust the quick camera cuts, versus sitting right on the stage next to them where you can see every single move. By doing it himself, he's pulling the audience directly onto the stage.
That is a perfect analogy. Because he has spent 3 decades training to operate these machines and perform these stunts safely, a director doesn't have to hide the face. They can literally bolt a heavy IMAX camera directly to the handlebars of the motorcycle, pointing backward right at his face while he is legitimately weaving through Parisian traffic. They can mount a camera onto the wing of a plane he is genuinely piloting.
There's nowhere for the actor to hide, but more importantly, there's no need for the director to hide the seams of the production.
Exactly. And that alters the entire rhythm and immersion of the movie. Your brain doesn't have to subconsciously stitch together a wide shot and a fake close-up because it is all happening continuously within a single frame.
The visual grammar of the film basically transitions from asking the audience to watch this character do a dangerous thing to inviting them to actually experience this dangerous thing alongside the character.
Yes.
It really is a complete rewiring of modern action cinema.
It is.
When you look back at all the production history we've pulled apart today, the picture of his methodology is incredibly clear. We've unpacked the 4 core physical pillars that define his on-screen presence. First, the hyper-intense sprint that turns a simple chase into a prolonged endurance test. Second, the vehicular escalation, just refusing to fake the physics of speed, demanding real G-forces in real aircraft. Third, leaning into the exposed vulnerability of the motorcycle, or a galloping horse, to create a deep, unshielded tactile realism.
Right.
And finally, the stunt itself, utilized not just for an adrenaline rush, but as a calculated tool to rewrite the rules of where a camera can physically exist in space.
It's an unprecedented commitment to the craft of immersive storytelling.
It truly is. And I think the most valuable takeaway from all this is how you consume his films moving forward.
Yeah.
The next time you watch one of his movies, I challenge you to look past the explosions and the fight choreography.
Okay.
Pay close attention to where the camera is physically placed. Ask yourself, where is the lens right now? You will realize that the camera is often in a completely impossible, highly dangerous position.
Right.
And it's only able to be there because of the physical habits he's cultivated over a lifetime. That completely changes the viewing experience from passive entertainment to an active appreciation of the scene's architecture. It makes you a more informed viewer.
I think so too.
But, as we wrap up this deep dive, it leaves me with a very different kind of question about the future of this medium.
Oh, what are you thinking?
Well, we've established that his entire cinematic identity relies on practical, in-camera danger to create authentic tension.
Right.
He has trained audiences to expect and demand that physical reality. But we are rapidly approaching an era where AI video generation is becoming flawlessly photorealistic.
Oh, man. Oh.
What happens when the technology advances to the point where our brains literally cannot distinguish a genuine practical stunt from a prompted, artificially generated one? Like, when a computer can perfectly simulate the G-forces on an actor's face, the wind resistance, the micro-expressions of fear, will the massive physical sacrifices this actor made lose their cinematic value entirely?
That is a terrifying thought.
Or will knowing a human actually risk their life always carry a psychological weight for the audience that codes simply can't replicate? It's something to chew on the next time you marvel at a death-defying stunt on the big screen.